to my heartbeat sound. We fell in love as the leaves turn brown, and we could be together, baby, as long as skies are blue.
Welcome on to the Blake and Noah Show, live from LA to Chicago. I'm your host, Blake Devant, and I'm joined by my co-host, Noah Taborda. Today marks the 30th episode of the show, and it will also be our final show on national sports. Noah, welcome on to the show today.
Thanks, Blake. It's I guess it's sentimental. Final day on national sports, but it's been 30 good episodes. You know, we missed 22 weeks, but I think those 30 episodes were all great episodes. So now, you know what? It's the end of one chapter, but it's the beginning of a new one. We're moving over to Infinity Sports Network, which you should be sure to like on Facebook and follow on Spreaker. And also, like Blake and Noah, LA to Chicago on Facebook as well. Also, the number to call, by the way, 224-563-8444. Again, that's 224-563-8444 in the comment section below.
Yeah, so with that, we're going to start our episode. But first, we have to welcome on our guest contributor today, Brendan Albertson. And this is a guy we met at SBC Boston, who was one of our buddies who now has decided to join us on our new network at Infinity Sports. And Brendan, welcome onto the show today.
Thank you very much, Blake. For those of you who don't know me, as Blake had just introduced me, I'm Brendan Albertson. I had met Blake and Noah at SBC Boston roughly 2 weeks ago. I'm a huge hockey guy, so I do a lot of stuff with college hockey, not to mention high school. I love to follow the NHL as well.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Well, thanks for being on, and I can't wait to hear your voice today on our show. So with that, we're going to move on to our first topic of the day, and that is going to be baseball, Major League Baseball. Right now we have a game going on between the Red Sox and the Yankees, but other than that, every game has been finished up for all the weekend series. So Noah, why don't you run down the scoreboard for me for Major League Baseball on this Sunday, August the 3rd?
Yeah, well, of course, this is the first weekend after the trade deadline, and it's been a good start, I guess you could say, to the weekend. We start with Arizona and Pittsburgh. A lot of extra inning games today. Arizona defeated Pittsburgh 3-2 in extra innings, in the 10th inning to be exact. San Diego over Atlanta 4-3, that also in extra innings. The Dodgers didn't look too hot today as they were taken down by the Chicago Cubs 7-3. You know you're not playing well if you lose to the Cubs. Kansas City 4, Oakland 2, St. Louis 3, Milwaukee 2. The Houston Astros defeated Toronto by the score of 6-1. LA stayed hot, winning 7-5 over the Tampa Bay Rays, who recently traded away David Price. Washington shut out the Phillies 4-0. Baltimore 1-0 over Seattle in a pitching duel. Cincinnati 7, Miami 3. San Francisco they dominated the Mets 9-0. Detroit 4, Colorado 0. And then in the 12th inning, Cleveland defeated Texas. And though I hate to say it, the White Sox slaughtered by the Twins 16-3. And of course, the Red Sox and Yankees right now in the middle of the third, but lots of runs there. The Boston Red Sox have 5, the Yankees have 3.
Okay, well, there we go with the scoreboard here. Now I'm going to quickly run down the standings before we get discussing on some of the issues and topics in Major League Baseball. But we'll start with the American League East Division. We have Baltimore right now leading by 3.5 games with a record of 62-48. They are tied right now for the third best record in the American League. They're followed by Toronto, 3.5 back. New York, who's currently playing the Red Sox, like you said, 5.5 games back. And then there's Tampa Bay, 3 games under 500. And then there's my favorite team, the Red Sox. They're 12 games under 500, 13 games back. And they've traded all their pitchers. We'll talk about that later, all the big old trade deadline moves that were made for the Red Sox. Now, moving over to the American League Central, Detroit leads the division by 5 games right now. The record is 61-47. Behind them is the Kansas City Royals. 6.5 games back is the Cleveland Indians. 9 games back is Noah's Chicago White Sox. And 12 games back is the Minnesota Twins. Okay, now to the American League West. You have Oakland hosting the best record in the majors right now at 67-43. They're only trailing, or the Los Angeles Angels are only trailing them by 1 game with a record of 66-44. And then 10.5 games back are the Seattle Mariners. Then the Houston Astros are 21 games back. And then the Texas Rangers, quite a surprise, just an absolutely terrible year for them, 24.5 games back already at the beginning of August. Now, looking at the wild card standings, and this is where it gets interesting in the American League. You have the Angels leading right now for the first slot. Toronto Blue Jays are in second. 1.5 games back are the Kansas City Royals. 2 games back are the New York Yankees, tied with the Seattle Mariners. And then 3 games back are the Cleveland Indians. Okay, now moving on to the National League standings. We're going to start with the National League East here. Washington leads by 3.5 games with a record of 60-49. They're followed by the Braves, who are 3.5 back. Then the Miami Marlins are 7 games back. New York Mets, 8 games back. Philadelphia Phillies, 12.5 games back. Central now, this is a very, very tight division. You have 4 teams in contention right now for this division crown. Milwaukee, who's been there all year long, they're only 1 game up on the St. Louis Cardinals. 1.5 games back from them are the Pittsburgh Pirates, and then 4.5 games back are the Cincinnati Reds, 13 games back Chicago Cubs. Now the NL West, LA Dodgers are leading currently by 2.5 games over the San Francisco Giants. The record is 63-49, and then in third place, 11.5 games back are the San Diego Padres, 14 games back Arizona Diamondbacks, and 18.5 games Colorado Rockies. Now looking at the wildcard standings in the National League, you have San Francisco leading the first slot, St. Louis leading the second slot, and then only a half game back are those Pittsburgh Pirates, and then 2 games back, the Atlanta Braves. So a very, very, very tight wildcard standing in both American League and National League. So I'm going to give it over to Brendan real quickly. Brendan, who do you think is going to pull out in both the American League and the National League for those wildcard spots?
I really like the Blue Jays. I really like the Blue Jays. I think they're a strong team, especially in the AL East. You got yourself a really tough competitive division in there. But looking at the Blue Jays themselves, they look really strong. In terms of the NL, I haven't really been paying attention to the NL wildcard race there as much as I've been paying attention to the AL wildcard. So I'm figuring anybody that's in the tight NL wildcard race is a potential.
Okay, Noah, now I'm going to hand it over to you. American League, a lot of people think the Angels are definitely going to get there because they are only trailing those A's by 1 game. But all those other teams, like the Yankees, Seattle, even Cleveland, do they have a shot, or is it just between Toronto and Kansas City right now?
Well, if I've learned anything, it's the AL. It's unpredictable. I would probably have to say that at this point, the Angels are a shoo-in for one of the wildcard spots. But I'm going to agree with Brendan here. I think Toronto will get the other one. I would have gone with Kansas City, but Toronto looks strong right now. They have lost their last 3 games, but not many of the other real threats in the wildcard race have been winning many anyways. You look at the Yankees, they're 5-5 in their last 10. Kansas City, the only team who is 7-3 out of any team in the wild card hunt at all. So really, I don't think there's much going wrong for Toronto. They're obviously gonna have to right the ship, but at this point, I like Toronto to come out of there. And then the National League, this is where it gets tough. Right now, you look at a team. You're looking at the top, and none of the teams are hot. All 5-5, 3-7. None of them are going the right direction. The only one that seems to be going in the right direction is the Miami Marlins, but they're 5.5 games back. They're not really in it at all. Atlanta seems to be losing their grasp. They've lost 6 in a row. I think that they are headed the wrong direction. I like San Francisco, and I still like St. Louis to hold on and get those last 2 spots.
Okay, and with that, now we're going to move on to the second topic, and that has to do with the MLB trade deadline. Lots of huge names were traded to some of the biggest names in all of Major League Baseball, including John Lester of the Red Sox getting traded to the A's. The A's, already with their fantastic pitching staff, just gained another great pitcher, but it was at the cost of one of their biggest hitters, Yoenis Cespedes, who's now a Red Sox. Also, Red Sox did trade John Lackey to the Cardinals. Another huge move was David Price, moving from the Tampa Bay Rays all the way to Detroit. Now you have Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, and David Price. I mean, that is just a scary 1-2-3 punch in the postseason. Other moves were also very impressive. But guys, biggest winners and losers of the Major League Baseball trade deadline. Brendan, I'll start with you.
I would like to say that the A's are huge winners. You have John Lester. He's a really terrific pitcher. He pitched really, really well for the Red Sox back in the World Series last year. Not to mention you got Johnny Gomes as well on that team. That's really good. Johnny Gomes, he's been known to take teams from worst to first, like he did with the Red Sox this year or last season. Actually, looking at the Red Sox themselves, as you just said, Yoenis Cespedes being a power hitter when he was in Oakland, I think that he's going to be just as good for the Red Sox. But one of the questions I have for the Red Sox is the bullpen. Who's going to lead that bullpen? You have Clay Buchholz, but that's the big question. You really have Clay Buchholz, but how are you going to be able to say we traded away John Lester, we traded away John Lackey? Who's going to be the leader now?
Yeah, and that's the big question for the Red Sox. Obviously, we saw that this team is not going to be a team that is in contention this year, but what are they doing for themselves in the next year? Because they have no real starting pitchers who have any experience now. Although they just got a great hitter in Yoenis Cespedes, they're looking very, very weak on the pitching side of the ball. Noah, now over to you. Which teams won big in the trade deadline and which teams lost?
Well, the two teams that won big have to be the A's and the Detroit Tigers. Look, everybody says the A's have lost their batting. They were already the best teams in terms of run production in baseball. They were number one, and Cespedes wasn't even their biggest contributor. Brandon Moss and Josh Donaldson both contributed more RBIs and more home runs. And in terms of offensive WAR, Cespedes wasn't even in the top 5. In fact, he was 6th. So they really didn't lose as much as people think. He's a terrific athlete, great fielder. He also is a spark at the clubhouse and can get runs when it's necessary. He's a terrific power hitter. But what they did is they turned their pitching staff from a top 5 to the best. They just added another terrific pitcher who can be a front of the rotation guy. In terms of losers, there weren't many big losers actually this year. I think a lot of the teams managed to make the trades that suited them. The Red Sox, of course, you could say they're losers, but at least they brought in somebody to replace the future. I really don't see actually many big losers this year.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you guys have to consider is that what is your opinion on the Detroit Tigers? This is a team that already, some would say, have the American League Central just wrapped up, and now they're getting that 1-2-3 punch. How dangerous is this team come October? Brendan, what do you think?
I think that the Detroit Tigers will look really strong. I think they're going to make a deep postseason run.
Okay, Noah, what do you think about the Tigers? Are they going to win it all this year?
You know what? I had so much confidence in them last year, and they really let me down. I don't know. Justin Verlander isn't the same pitcher he once was. He's not even close to an all-star at this point. He's having a dreadful year with a 4.46 ERA. Just horrible. It's all about, for me, how he performs, because they're going to put him in the postseason no matter what. Even though I would prefer they go with a guy with Scherzer, Price, and either Anibal Sanchez or Rick Porcello, they'll probably end up having Verlander in there. You know what? I think they are, once again, a team that can make it all the way to the ALCS, and then I don't think they have what it takes to make it to the World Series.
A bold prediction for Noah there. And with that, we're going to wrap up our first section of the day, Major League Baseball. Now we're going to transition over to the NFL. Lots to talk about here. Obviously, the 2014 Hall of Fame class was enshrined. 7 former pros were inducted, including Michael Strahan, to name a few, who had a very memorable moment up on stage in Canton last night. But some of the other guys that were named also having great careers. Andre Reed, linebacker Derek Brooks, tackle Walter Jones, defensive end Michael Strahan, like we said, cornerback, I don't know how to pronounce this, Aeneas Williams?
Aeneas, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I got it right. And then punter Ray Guy, who we all know in college football for that wonderful Ray Guy trophy that is given to the nation's best punter. And finally, defensive end Claude Humphrey. They were all elected to the Hall of Fame, and it was just a very, very good night for the NFL. Brendan, did you get to watch any of the game? Or the ceremony?
I didn't get the chance to, but let me first off state congratulations to those guys that got enshrined into the Hall of Fame last night. It's a true honor for them. But I didn't get the chance to watch. But I wanted to comment on Ray Guy being the first punter to be elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Do you think this is going to lead to more enshrinements of punters and kickers to the Hall of Fame?
I think that it is definitely a good stepping stone. I mean, there hasn't been, you could say, as many memorable punters as kickers, in my opinion, but I think they're just as deserving as any other position. Obviously, there's a ton of quarterbacks in there's a ton of running backs, but I think it's about time that we got more punters in the Hall of Fame. So I say yes to that. Noah, what do you think?
Well, I definitely think punters are people, too. In fact, our Say What segment has to do with a punter, I believe, or is it a kicker? Not exact. I think it's a punter. But we'll get to that later. Look, punters, you know what? Maybe they're not as athletic as every other player there, but I mean, look at Steve Weatherford. He thinks differently, to say the least. The punters, they provide value because without a punter, what do you have? You're going to give them the ball 5 yards from where you were last? It doesn't work that way. Kickers have won Super Bowls. They have put teams on their backs at certain times. They definitely deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and guys, Noah, now I'm just going to keep on rolling with you, but what is your favorite memory of one of these famous guys and their great careers they had in the NFL?
Oh, Strahan when he broke the sack record. Unfortunately, he sacked Brett Favre on the Packers. But it was still a great moment nonetheless for Michael Strahan. You know, I was actually able to listen to some of the induction ceremony, and he just talked about how he learned so much from the players. He learned from Phil Simms. He learned from Lawrence Taylor. He learned from all of these guys, and he learned how to practice like a pro. And before every game, he'd go around and get people ready. Then he talked about Eli Manning, of course, how Eli Manning is one of the most prepared people he's ever met. But, Strahan was a phenomenal guy, great character overall. You know, he's also a TV personality as well. So, you know what, I think he deserves it a lot, and congratulations to him as well as all the other guys.
Yeah, okay, well now moving on to the next part, and this is a very, very interesting story, courtesy of Brendan, who kind of mentioned it to me, but the NFL reportedly was planting thank you Roger signs throughout the crowd at the NFL Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Brendan, you're the one that first relayed the story to me. What is your take on this?
I saw this on Twitter this morning, actually. And my take on it was I wasn't really surprised in some ways, but the NFL played it out really, really well, to be honest with you. They just sent people associated with the front office, and they handed off these posters saying, "Thank you, Roger," to like 2-year-olds or kids who don't even know who Roger Goodell is, and they don't know who he is, what his personality is. And to me, I just think this is a bit of a cocky move in some ways by the NFL, and it seems like it seems that Roger Goodell is just looking for attention. He's a true attention seeker, and you see it everywhere. He tries to get into the press. He tries to do these sort of stunts like "Thank you, Roger."
Yeah.
Okay, by the way, Blake, we will have Robert Dieters calling in a minute.
Okay,
So
is he on right now, or is he going to call in a second?
Not yet, not quite yet, but he will be on in a second.
Okay, great. And Noah, why don't you give us the update right now on the NFL Hall of Fame game that's going on between the Giants and the Buffalo Bills?
Well, right now, the Giants and the Buffalo Bills playing the Hall of Fame game. It's 10-10 at halftime. Of course, this being the first game, most teams really aren't playing all of their starters for very long. Eli Manning, 6 of 7 for 43 yards. E.J. Manuel, 2 of 7 for 19 yards. Jeff Toole has been the big story, completing 12 of 17 passes for 74 yards. He has a touchdown, but he was also intercepted. And in terms of running the ball, Andre Williams, 48 yards. Nice start off for him. And, really quickly, though, we actually, first of all, have Nick Bagadas on the line. Nick, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Noah?
I'm doing pretty good. We're just talking about the NFL and the Hall of Fame game. You got any questions or Just want to talk.
Yeah, I was wondering what your outlook is on my Steelers season this year.
The Steelers. Blake, you want to start with that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can totally hear me through the speaker, but what I was going to say, the Steelers, I think they're one of those teams that every year they have a down year, they come back the next year, and they're a very, very competitive team that makes the playoffs. I think this is going to be a very, very good year for them. They have Ben Roethlisberger, who's in the prime of his career. Although he's at the end of his prime, he's still in the prime. Le'Veon Bell is turning into a very good running back, and I think that he's going to have an awesome season this year and make the Pro Bowl. With that being said, I see this team making the playoffs. Not sure how far they go. And then I see Cincinnati winning the division, but I see the Steelers team getting second and the Ravens finishing third. But also you got to consider the Cleveland Browns and Johnny Manziel, so it's a very competitive division, but I see the Steelers making the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Blake, 100%. I think the Steelers are a wild card team, and you know what? Maybe they surprise and they win the division. It's not going to be easy, but they have the team to do it. Le'Veon Bell, definitely the biggest part of this offense. I think that if he can continue to break out and have a good sophomore season, not have that sophomore slump kind of year, I think that the Steelers have a great shot of making the playoffs. I mean, you look back at last year, they got off to a poor start, and then, of course, came all the way back and got robbed. But this year is different. They have a clean slate, and if they can get off to a hotter start, I don't think that there's any doubt in my mind they are a playoff team.
Yeah.
I just feel like the Eagles are slowly losing confidence in Andy Dalton. The Ravens, even playing field with the Steelers, they're getting older as well. Blake's fantasy stud Josh Gordon out for the year. I just think this is the year everyone's probably Troy Polamalu ended his career. Ben Roethlisberger, as you said, ended his prime. I think this is all or nothing season. We go all out and could potentially make it far in the playoffs. I know Peyton tends to choke, and the Patriots are up in the air. So, do we have a chance to make it to the Super Bowl?
Do you have a chance? Yes. Do I think you will? No. But here's the thing. At this time in the NFL, we've had so many teams that make it there that we don't expect them to, and considering it is the Steelers and they have a history of making it to the Super Bowl, it wouldn't surprise me in any way if they did. I mean, you know what? Maybe a minor surprise, but it's not like anybody's going to say, oh my God, the Steelers in the Super Bowl? Since when? They definitely have the running game to do it, and I think, of course, they have the coaching to do it as well.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for calling in, Nick. Call in anytime.
Okay, well, that was Nick who got us another guy, Noah, who's going to be joining the Infinity Sports Network, and we made friends with him through SBC Boston. Very talented guy, and it was nice of him to call in today.
Yeah. Okay.
So is Robert Dieter still trying to call you, or?
I'm going to call him right now.
Okay, so right now we're going to be calling Robert Dieter, the president of National Sports. He's a frequent caller on our show.
Oh, first now we have another caller.
Oh, we have another caller. Okay.
Okay, how you doing? What's your name and where are you from?
Hey, this is Greg Space from Minnesota.
How you doing, Greg? What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about Kevin Love right now.
Okay. What do you want to...
I want to know what you guys think if Kevin Love somehow stays in Minnesota.
Okay, well, I'll handle that one first.
Okay.
I think that Kevin Love is almost certainly going to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Unfortunately for you, a Minnesota Timberwolves fan, I think that it's almost certain that they're going to give up Andrew Wiggins or Kevin Love, and they're going to get somebody in return. If it's Tristan Thompson, if it's the former number one pick from, what is his name? From 2 years ago. No,
Anthony Bennett?
Anthony Bennett. I mean, you could end up with two number one picks who have immediate potential as superstars in return for a guy who doesn't even want to play for you, let alone represent the city of Minnesota. So I think in the long run it's going to help the team, but it just hurts because it's very similar to the Kevin Garnett situation.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't think that it's just for Minnesota's sake. I know that having Kevin Love would make you a better team theoretically, but I think Minnesota should move on, and it's tough. I mean, Minnesota they keep losing star power forwards, but it's not going to help them if the guy doesn't want to be there. It's just going to hinder them in their rebuilding process. If you can trade with Cleveland, you immediately set up a future. You have a guy like Andrew Wiggins who could be a star in this league. Anthony Bennett, he's getting better. He probably will never be a star, but, solid role player. Got a bunch of other solid role players as well.
Brendan, do you want to take a bite at this? Share your opinion, or?
I'll take an opinion on this. What you had said about the Minnesota Timberwolves, got Kevin Love potentially looking to go to Cleveland. It just brings back the memory of Kevin Garnett. When Kevin Garnett was in Minnesota, he was a dominant player there, and then he ended up getting traded to Boston, which led to the Celtics winning the 2008 NBA title. And this is Kevin Love's decision. Is it if he stays in Minnesota, or does he go down to Cleveland? That's all I got to say.
Okay, Greg, anything else?
No, that'll be about it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. Call in anytime.
And that was Greg, he was my roommate at
And mine too. It was mine.
Yeah, we were all in this huge room that actually had 5 people in total. So that was fun. And now, do we have Robert Dieters? Or
Still,
what?
now I have to call him again because I've gotten so many calls.
Yeah, we're having a great amount of callers today, guys. Thank you for calling into our show.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you're dialing.
His voicemail, he's just forwarding to his voicemail, so we'll get in touch with him when we can.
Yeah, whenever he wants to call, he can feel free to call. But right now we're live on air, so let's continue the show and get on to the next topic, which is the most overvalued and undervalued players in fantasy football. Guys, I'm going to hand it over to both of you and share your opinion. Brendan, so who should be looking forward to as overvalued and try to avoid, and then who are some undervalued guys who can kind of step up and really change the dynamic of our fantasy football teams this year?
I think Jimmy Graham, he's a bit questionable. Today he got penalized for dunking in a game. I'm not sure if his antics could cost him and the Saints, but I still think he could do well. But looking at the under, I think Reggie Bush is considered to be one of the underrated guys. I've had him on my fantasy football teams before in previous seasons. He's a tough and fast player. I think he'll do really well, but I honestly think he's underrated.
Before we go on, we have another caller, not Robert Dieters. What's your name and where are you from?
Hey, I'm Matt from New Jersey.
Hey, Matt. How you doing? What do you want to talk about?
Alright, so I know you're talking about fantasy football right now, but I just want to go right back to the NBA. I know you were talking about Paul George and his injury and stuff, and I was just thinking about the Pacers' future. Do you think that the Pacers this year still have a chance to make the playoffs? I know the East is pretty weak, and even without Paul George, they still have George Hill and David West, and if Roy Hibbert actually does good, they could be a pretty solid team. I just want to know if you think they'll make the playoffs this year.
Blake, you want to take this first?
Yeah, I feel like Matt's reading my script right now because that's going to be one of our topics a little later on in the NBA, but why not just go right to it? So, yeah, Paul George injured his leg, and people are saying that it's going to take at least a full year for him to come back on the basketball court. This is a team that already lost Lance Stevenson, who is arguably their second best player in the postseason because Roy Hibbert was just disastrous, as we know. This is a team that went from being maybe the East favorite if they had re-signed Lance Stevenson and had Paul George because LeBron moved from the Heat to Cleveland, from a team that now they only have Roy Hibbert. That's their best player. And I don't know about most of you guys, but I would not want to rely on a guy like Roy Hibbert to get my team to a championship or even in the postseason. So this team is now going from a team that had a total in the Eastern Conference to a team that may be looking out when it's all said and done at the end of the regular season. So it's going to be a fight for a 7th or 8th seed for this team.
Yeah, I agree. I actually talked about this on Rookies Roundup earlier today, which you should go listen to and like their Facebook page. But you know what? I said they're an 8 seed. I think it's going to be very difficult to get in, especially because every other team in the East seems to be trending up. Meanwhile, they are trending down. You look at Atlanta, you look at Charlotte, you look at Toronto, you look at Washington, Chicago, Cleveland. The list goes on and on. Meanwhile, they're headed the opposite direction. And it's unfortunate. You never want to see a team hindered by an injury. And it's unfortunate for Paul George as well, who's a terrific NBA player. I mean, it's going to be tough to see him go, but I think they are a borderline team right now. I think that they'll make it in as the 8th seed, though.
I have one more question. I just want to say one more thing. So you guys are leaving the station, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the new station you guys are joining?
Infinity Sports Network.
And that is airing when?
August 8th at 8 p.m. Eastern. 8 at 8.
All right, so I just want to say that you guys, I've loved you guys in national sports. I hope you do just as well on Infinity Sports Network.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you for calling in and calling
no
anytime.
Okay, well, that was great. We've had how many callers so far, Noah? Your phone is just exploding right here in the studio.
Yeah, 3. It's been pretty crazy. By the way, I just got an update. Pharrell Williams will perform outside of CenturyLink Field for the September 4th opener between the Seahawks and the Packers.
Wow, there we go. Another big news. So where were we? Fantasy football.
Yes.
Brandon, were you sharing your opinion, or had you wrapped it up?
I had already shared my opinion.
Okay, so now it's Noah's turn. Noah, most overvalued and undervalued players in fantasy football.
Oh, I'm gonna step out on a limb here and say that one of the most overvalued players is Peyton Manning, not because of the fact that he's not a terrific fantasy player. I think he's a terrific quarterback. I think he's the best quarterback for fantasy, but because of the place people are drafting him. Look, they're drafting him too early. He should be a guy in the 3rd round, to be honest. Not that he doesn't put up a lot of fantasy points, just based on the value of running backs and wide receivers and the depth within that position, it's much harder. You can get a good quarterback, say, in the 5th or 6th round rather than the 1st round, but people are taking quarterbacks earlier, and for people who wait, they're actually reaping the benefits, getting better running backs and still quarterbacks that can provide the difference. See, if you look at quarterbacks, the difference between the top tiers and the middle tier that you can get in the 5th and 6th round, or the top tier anyways, isn't even that big. Between running backs, once you get outside of those like top 10, top 15, it really starts to go downhill fast. He's overvalued in my opinion because of the fact that people are drafting him early, and Ray Rice undervalued. It was mainly his offensive line last year that really took a dent on his fantasy stats. He may be out this year for 2 games, but he's still a valuable piece, as well as Bernard Pierce for those first 2 weeks.
Yeah, and thank you for that, Noah. You just covered 2 players that I drafted in our draft. Peyton Manning was my first pick, and one of my later picks was actually Ray Rice, and then I ended up picking up Bernard Pierce. So you basically just summed up my fantasy football team. With that being said, I have to name my overvalued player, and right now I have
wait, Blake, before we keep going, we have another caller on the line. What's your name and where are you from?
Bradley, and I'm from Santa Barbara, California.
How you doing, Bradley? What do you want to talk about?
I just wanted to see your guys' opinion on who do you think is going to win the International Cup of Champions for soccer.
International Champions Cup. I was at Real Madrid versus Manchester United just the other day. In fact, yesterday. It was a horrifying drive home, but it was worth it to see that game. You know what? I think Manchester United will win it. Louis van Gaal is a terrific, terrific coach. His new formation, the 3-5-2 or 3-4-1-2, whatever you want to describe it as, really works very well. I think especially in this tournament, I think people are buying into how he's playing. The fact that they basically took everybody off of their team and put in their whole bench for the Real Madrid game and still scored without allowing a goal speaks volumes about what he's doing for this team. Liverpool, obviously a phenomenal team, but I got Manchester United here. Blake, you got any input on that?
Yeah, Manchester United, you saw them 3-1 over a fantastic Real Madrid team, although Ronaldo's still injured and he came in about the 78th minute, I believe. But Real Madrid is a great team, and if they're able to beat them 3-1, although Liverpool's undefeated, I'm just saying, I think Manchester United has come to play in this tournament.
Yeah, Bradley, anything else?
Yeah, actually, I was just wondering, how you guys think that Liverpool is going to do this season without Luis Suarez?
Okay, so Liverpool, of course, they've got a lot of youth, and it's mostly England youth, but they're still a phenomenal team. They're going to have to rely a lot more heavily on Daniel Sturridge, but Raheem Sterling has a chance really to break out in his own, even though he already did that, I guess, in the World Cup to a certain extent. Finally, have extended time to prove himself, and I think that Liverpool, I think they have what it takes to get a top 4 finish. It's not going to be easy, especially this year where I think it'll be crowded at the top. but I personally think that they are, at worst, the 5th best team in the Premier League. It's just a question of who steps up and when they step up.
Yeah.
Blake?
Okay, well, I think that's good. Any more questions or anything you'd like to discuss?
That's it.
Thanks for calling in, Bradley. Call in anytime. That's
Thank you.
That's quite a lot of callers we've had, and it seems like every 3 minutes somebody else is calling us.
Yeah, Brendan, thank you for staying on here. This is unlike it usually is on the Blake and Noah show. We've had a record number of callers so far for this amount of time. I think how many minutes are we in so far in the show today, Noah?
We are in 35 minutes, and I think we have, 4 callers? 3?
Yeah. No, we've had 4.
4? Wow.
Very impressive.
Yeah. I think 4 was our record before, and we're not even we're halfway through the show.
Yeah, pretty impressive. And I think with that, Brendan, it's time for our first commercial break. You've been a wonderful guest today. Any last words you'd like to say before we go on to break number 1?
All right, I just wanted to say to the listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. And most importantly, I just wanted to wish Blake and Noah the best of luck moving over from National Sports right over to Infinity Sports Network.
Okay, well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to have you on. And be sure to either be a guest another time or call into our show.
Alrighty, thank you very much.
Okay, and with that, Noah, I think we're going to head into our first commercial break here. I'm Blake Devine. This is Noah Taborda. The number to call in, again, is... Why don't I just say it? Why don't I just say the number, and why don't I just say the Facebook page? Number to call in is 224-563-8444, but hold on to your phone. We're going to take our first commercial break. Stick with us here, everybody.
Are you looking for a unique take on the sports stories you can't get enough of? Do you want a new spin on the sports stories you don't hear enough about? Then don't miss Rookies Roundup with me, your host Jake Liker, once a week. Like our Facebook page to find out when the next episode is, or to find out how to listen to just the highlights of a long show and other additional content. Follow me on Twitter at Jake Liker or on Instagram at Jake_Liker. Tell your friends, your family, your neighbor, everyone you know to tune in to Rookies Roundup on the National Sports Network on Spreaker.
We'll just do all the...
Okay, welcome back in to Blake and Noah LA to Chicago. We would have a song, but we don't today because, we got a lot of stuff to cover. And we are going to bring in Miles Klotz in a second. We're just adding him in right now. Blake, you want to cover all of our information stuff?
Yeah. What's the time, guys? Okay. For the little technical difficulties, I can hear myself. Sorry about that. Welcome back to the Blake and Noah show. The number to call in one more time is 224-563-8444. Pick up the phone, send us a text, whatever you'd like to say. Discuss your favorite teams, ask questions. Who knows? We're just excited to have you on. Also, be sure to like our page on Facebook, Blake and Noah LA to Chicago. And with that, time to introduce our new guy, Miles Klotz, who's going to be guesting us right now.
Hey guys, how you doing? My name's Miles. I'm glad to be on the show. I met these guys at SBC Boston and had a really great time, and I'm going to be a part of the new network, Infinity Sports Network, so it's great to get on this show one last time before we head over to the new network.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on right now, Miles. So with that, we're going to move on to our first topic out of the commercial, and that's going to be NBA. Lots to talk about here with Paul George's injury. Noah, why don't you just recount what happened yesterday?
Well, of course, Paul George, a phenomenal NBA player for the Indiana Pacers, member of the USA basketball team. He was playing in I guess it was a showcase, a USA showcase. Tried to block a shot on a fast break. He awkwardly landed on his ankle, which pushed the pressure up through his leg and down through his knee. And basically had, a tibia-fibula fracture, open fracture, which means it's better than if it wasn't. It was a clean break, and luckily no soft tissue was damaged, no blood vessels or nerves were damaged. So you want the good news, none of that was damaged, and that means he gets to keep his leg. So there we go, good news.
Yeah. The bad news is that this is going to really affect the mojo of the USA basketball team. Although they're absolutely loaded and it will not have any effect on the actual games that will be going on, it will have an effect on the emotional side of the team, and how they're going to be responding to this is going to be a key thing to look at here. Kind of similar to the injury 2 years ago in the NCAA tournament when the Louisville player injured his leg in a very gruesome fashion, and that kind of inspired the team to win a championship. So I could maybe see that happening here, but with that being said, the Pacers are getting hit the worst from this injury, and it's going to affect their team for this next upcoming NBA season. So Miles, I'm going to let you handle this one first. How big is this injury for the Pacers?
Well, for the Pacers, it's a big injury because they lost Lance Stevenson this offseason. And obviously, Lance Stevenson was a key player for them this last year. His off-the-court stuff, whatever, notwithstanding, he was a key player for them. And Roy Hibbert really did not turn up in the playoffs. He really did not show up, and that really hurt them in terms of their post presence. And so now they've got a guy like Luis Scola who's taking all the stuff in the post. But I want to go back to the point about how it's going to affect the team emotionally. We look at the coach, Mike Krzyzewski, and we notice that he's been on the when Kevin Ware hurt his leg in the Louisville Duke game in the 2013 NCAA tournament. Mike Krzyzewski was on the opposing coach and was on the bench. He's been on the bench for two of the most gruesome injuries we've seen in a long time. So it's going to be tough. Paul George is not going to be easy to replace on either team. But let's be honest, the U.S. are in a group with the Dominican Republic, Turkey, the United States, Finland, New Zealand, and Ukraine. Besides Turkey and the Dominican Republic, which has Al Horford, there's not really none of those teams are really going to put up a fight. And besides maybe Spain and Brazil and France and maybe Serbia, the U.S. are going to coast through the tournament easily, regardless of sentimental stuff for this injury. But it's still going to hurt, especially for the Pacers, because Paul George put up 21 points per game last year and 31 points per 100 possessions, which is a good stat for tracking in a total game. So it's going to be a tough loss for them to fathom. And I don't even know if they'll make the playoffs if he's out for the whole year.
Yeah, Noah, we already talked about this because of the caller in, Matt, but just another point to add with this injury. This is a guy that is in the prime of his career. We've seen it happen with Derrick Rose. He has not been the same guy, but who knows what's going to happen this upcoming season. But is Paul George ever going to be the same player that we saw before this injury?
Well, I could talk about Derrick Rose for days upon days, and you know what? I actually have to reference Derrick Rose for this. You hear Jim Boeheim, coach of Syracuse, and of course Coach K, Mike Krzyzewski, talking about Derrick Rose and how impressive he's been and how he's one of the most impressive players. And I think what that shows you is that it's not necessarily how much time you miss. It's about your will to get back on the court and keep going. You know, Paul George, they were talking to a doctor yesterday on ESPN radio, and the doctor said there's about a 90% chance he returns to the same old Paul George. That does leave 10% that he doesn't. But 90% is, I would take that if I'm a Pacers fan. It's better than it being 50-50. I think Paul George will return to his former level. And you know what? Maybe not quite that exact same elite level, but I definitely think he can return to being an all-star and being the star of his team. With this, what's interesting about this is also now, it brings up the question whether or not NBA teams should let their players play in the FIBA World Championship or the Olympic Games. They really don't have a say at this point unless the player says no or unless there's an injury concern, like Manu Ginobili for Argentina. But unlike soccer, wearing your country's shirt isn't quite that same honor in basketball. So it's definitely going to make a lot of players question that as well. It's an interesting thing to look out for.
Yeah, and another point to add was Mark Cuban, who's always making famous comments for the wrong reasons. He had a very interesting comment about it. I don't have it quote for quote, but I believe it was something to do with why should the Olympic Committee be getting players to join due to their nationality and their pride for their country when really it's just a scam for the Olympic Committee to make money. I don't know about my reaction to that. I think that he's making a little harsh, those comments are a little harsh on the Olympic Committee. It had nothing to do with injury, why he was injured because it was an Olympic game and not an NBA game. But Miles, what do you think of those comments?
Well, first of all, let's take a point in that you don't have to play. LeBron James chose not to play, and maybe he was right after seeing this injury. He chose not to play, but also sports are about money, and I think everyone knows that. We see how much it's ridiculous how much athletes make nowadays, especially baseball players and boxers and soccer players. How much they make is out of this world. And because of that, sports really all goes back to the money issue. And maybe the Olympic Committee is trying to make money, but let's talk about it. FIBA is the thing ruling this, and actually FIBA is trying, in a way, to become the FIFA of basketball. And while it's never going to get there because basketball is not as much of a world's game as soccer is, but I think basketball.
Oh, just keep going. Sorry about that. We accidentally hit a little snack when we got a commercial. Technical.
Oh, it's all right. Well, I think basketball, while it's a growing sport around the world, I mean, I can understand Mark Cuban's upset about this. I can make sense. Maybe he doesn't want someone like his own player, like a Dirk Nowitzki, to get hurt while on international duty. But as Noah said, there's not as much pride in playing for your country in basketball as there is in soccer. Like if LeBron James had pride and wanted to play for his country, he would have chosen to, but he didn't. So I think ultimately, while it's all about money in the end, if a player doesn't want to get hurt, they don't have to play.
Yeah, okay, Noah, I'm going to hand it over to you on this one. Mark Cuban, always getting in the headlines for the wrong reasons, but what do you think of these comments?
I think it's true. The International Olympic Committee they're greedy. Them and FIFA aren't doing so hot. You know, we talked about this on Rookies Roundup, how the Winter Olympic Games could be held in Almaty, Kazakhstan, which is kind of crazy. But they obviously want a lot of money, but this is FIBA. Either way, I understand what he's saying, and I understand they're trying to sell the patriotism thing to make money, but I think that you can have a balance between patriotism and your own, money. So I think that this is it's a questionable comment, but at the end of the day, I think it's fine.
Yeah. Okay, so next topic now, the Kevin Love trade talk saga. I mean, this has been going on for a long time, guys, but it's been reported by a few guys, including Mark Stein of ESPN and some other famous reporters that have got some insight on the news. Kevin Love is almost certainly going to the Cavaliers to join LeBron James.
Blake, can I hold you up for a sec? We got a caller on the line again. Fifth caller of the day. What's your name and where you're from? Hello? We seem to be having a...
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
I'm Joe from the Bay Area.
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Good. Can I talk about how Paul George is the greatest player of all time and that the Pacers need to trade Roy Hibbert because he is the worst player I've ever seen in my life.
He is not great. And Paul George is, he's great, I guess. I mean, he's injured now, but do you think, here's a question for you. Do you think he'll come back and be as good as he was before?
Paul George has surpassed even Jordan in a way because if you look at what he does on defense, if you look at what he does on offense, he is a superstar. Kobe couldn't even live up to his performances when they squared off. LeBron couldn't either. So why does the media criticize Paul George? It is all Roy Hibbert's fault. Thanks for having me. This is Joe from the Bay Area. I know what I'm talking about. Come listen to my show that I do over at 1,000 Mics, please. And always remember this. The Indiana Pacers are the greatest team alive. Thank you.
Wow, that was quite the comment there.
Can you say bias?
Yeah. One of the most notable callers today we have from the Bay Area. And I was going to say, I was bringing up some arguments, but he obviously was in a quick hurry to call in and leave. But how could you say that Paul George has eclipsed Jordan, Kobe, LeBron? This is a guy that just got in the NBA in 2010. He's only made the playoffs, I believe, 3 seasons. He's been to the NBA All-Star Game 2 seasons. just the numbers are just not there. I mean, he's been to the NBA All-Defensive team as of this year, but this is a guy that has nothing compared to LeBron James, Kobe, or Jordan as of right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the Kevin Love trade talk. So, Andrew Wiggins is probably going to be headed to Minnesota, along with, I like how I said Minnesota with a little accent there, with probably Anthony Bennett, maybe a future first-round pick or some cash. Guys, who is going to be winning this deal in the long term? Is it going to be Minnesota with possibly 2 number 1 picks that could develop into great players, or is Cleveland going to end up winning, and are the Minnesota Timberwolves going to be one of those franchises that we just laugh about, kind of like, I don't know, the Raptors for a while were one of those teams, but now they're somewhat good. But Minnesota, are they going to end up reaping benefits in the long run?
You know what? I think that they will be able to. It's tough to say. Andrew Wiggins is unproven yet, but he's definitely a guy who I think could turn out to be a franchise player. Anthony Bennett, a solid backup. It's tough to say at this moment in time. Minnesota has had issues with power forwards. You got KG and Kevin Love. I think at the end of the day, it's better for them to get rid of Love. He doesn't want to be there. He's going to leave when he can anyways. You want to get something back. And Andrew Wiggins would be a terrific return, because at least that way you have a chance at a franchise player. If they stick with Love, he'll walk during free agency. They won't get anything. If they give him to Chicago, as much as I would love to have Kevin Love, they're not going to get that same franchise player. Mirotic maybe, but Wiggins is more of a certainty. And Golden State really doesn't want to give him to Klay Thompson. So you know what? If I'm Minnesota, I trade him immediately, because it's the best thing that you can hope for.
Yeah, so Miles, for your opinion on this, do you think that Minnesota is going to end up winning this one in the long run if those 2 players develop into All-Stars?
Well, we don't really know, because it's all about development, and I just think that either offer is going to be a good trade for both teams, because getting Kevin Love gives you a franchise player, one of the best players in the NBA, while getting the Bulls offer would give you potentially great player like Nikola Mirotic, or a potential, I won't go as far to say a potential Hall of Famer, but someone who showed more potential than anyone I've seen, certainly in the last 5 or 6 years, in Andrew Wiggins. And even though he didn't have the greatest college season, and he wasn't the flashiest, he's so athletic, he's so long, he's going to be a great defender regardless of if he learns to have a better jump shot or not. If he develops a full jump shot, I just think, I think the Timberwolves know they have to trade him. Their owner recently said he's likely to be traded by the 23rd or the 24th of August, which, not so coincidentally, is the day Andrew Wiggins is eligible to be traded from his rookie contract. So I think that a trade is definitely inevitable, because they know that he's not going to re-sign, so they want to get something for him. And I think, in terms of what would be the better offer, getting a potential franchise player like Andrew Wiggins along with a potential role player in Anthony Bennett is probably going to help them more in the long run for a franchise that's not looking to compete right away, but is going to be competitive in the coming years.
Yeah, good point there. Noah, anything else to add before we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, I think it's a certainty that Cleveland will be playing with Kevin Love. The question is whether or not they can, actually have an average season. They probably won't be a playoff team, but you never know. Andrew Wiggins could have a phenomenal rookie year. And then it comes down to Cleveland, whether or not their form big three of Kyrie, LeBron, and Kevin Love can lead them over the Bulls. It's going to be an interesting season and an interesting couple weeks.
Yeah, okay, so next topic, we're going to be moving on to soccer now. And both of you guys are experts in soccer, as you could say. Miles, a very knowledgeable soccer fan, and Noah, he plays soccer, and he was at that game, which is going to be our first topic today. Manchester United and Real Madrid. Man U won 3-1 in a very, very exciting game in front of 109,000 people at Michigan Stadium in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Just an absolutely incredible atmosphere. Noah, why don't you tell us a little bit about what it was like being at that game?
Well, of course, that was a record crowd for a U.S. soccer game. It was pretty impressive to see all those people packed in there. That was actually only 2,000 behind the Big House's record in any sporting event. So that's not pretty bad. That's not bad itself. First of all, there were a lot more Manchester United fans. if you look at the Marca in Spain, La Marca, the newspaper, they changed it actually to make it look a lot whiter, a lot more to make it look like there's more Real Madrid fans. You put the actual picture next to their picture, you can tell they photoshopped it a bit. But of course, their fans would rather see that than a bunch of Manchester United fans. But overall, it's still a terrific atmosphere. Great fans there. It was so much fun to go to that game. And though I'm a Real Madrid fan, I'm also a Manchester United fan. So it was great to be able to see my two favorite teams go head-to-head.
Yeah. So Miles, were you able to watch the game?
I wasn't, but before I talk, I just want to preface with this that I think preseason results are pretty much meaningless.
Yeah.
I think there's been a lot of studies that have shown that preseason results are. There's still good ways to evaluate players, but when you're not playing your first team to an extent, I mean, Ashley Young scored twice. I'm not sure if he'll score twice the entire season for Manchester United. So it was a fun game, and I think the attendance record shows people were there to show up. But I think in terms of preseason results, it's not really meaningful, but it's still fun to talk about and still fun to watch.
Yeah, and with that, I'm going to just talk about, so Chicharito, he obviously scored for Manchester United. He really did not get much playing time this year for his national team, Mexico, in the World Cup, or Manchester United. Do you think he's going to get transferred before the season starts? I'll let Noah cover this one first.
That's a good question. No, because Manchester United likes to have him as a super sub. I think in Chicharito's own benefit, it would be best for him to head elsewhere. But why really? Unless Van Gaal decides to get rid of him, which isn't out of question. I mean, Van Gaal is going to tear this team to shreds. The team that we saw against Real Madrid is not Manchester United. That's a thing of the past already. Van Gaal just wanted to see how they play to figure out which 10 players he wants to sell this year. Of course, he's trying to fund the move for Vidal, which would be a terrific signing. Arturo Vidal of Chile, of course. In fact, they are reserving the number 7 just for him. Look, Chicharito's been terrific, but he's not going to start. Van Persie and Rooney will start over him.
Well, this is assuming Van Persie's healthy the whole season.
That's assuming that. Even if he isn't, I still think they play well back over him. I think they bring in other people. He just never seems to have found his spot. And knowing Van Gaal, he's going to make some questionable moves, and maybe he does start him. But I think Van Gaal has his established players he already likes. I think he knows who he wants. And really, knowing Van Gaal, there's nothing in his way, because he's a madman, and it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, so the rumors are that he wants out of Manchester United, and Juventus is very eager to acquire him, and they're eager to get a deal on the table relatively quickly. But upon the recent news that Robert Van Persie will not be able to start the opener, what do you think, Miles?
Well, I would agree with Noah that Danny Welbeck is going to start ahead of him. But you bring up Juventus. While I've heard him linked to Southampton, who have the transfer money after tearing their team apart this transfer window, going to Juventus would be very interesting because maybe they would include him on a player exchange for Arturo Vidal. Obviously, it would take more than just Chicharito in order to get Arturo Vidal because he's a world-class player. But in a player exchange, it's not unheard of. When Zlatan Ibrahimovic transferred from Barcelona, he was part of a player exchange. So it's not unheard of for star players to become parts of player exchanges. But I think that Chicharito, really, he needs to go someplace. He's only 26. He needs to go someplace where he's going to be getting first team football.
Okay, we got another caller. CB, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm pretty good. What do you want to talk about?
Sorry I missed you guys, but I'd like to throw it earlier when you're talking about basketball, but I'd like to throw it back there with the Paul George injury. Do you think this makes the Pacers more of a sellers at this point? Like, they're already looking to move Roy Hibbert. Does it make it a bigger chance they make a move like this?
Here's the thing. They're going to be without him for a year, so the question now becomes whether the Pacers are willing to wait or whether they actually want to make a move now. It wouldn't surprise me if they tried to move Roy Hibbert. They're probably going to give him a little bit. They'll probably give him to the trade deadline. But depending on his performance, he could find himself wearing another team's uniform. The Pacers fans now are going to have come to expect, I think, a certain level of performance. It's been a while since they missed the playoffs, and I think that this year they're going to do everything they can to at least maintain themselves as a playoff team. So it wouldn't surprise me if they made a couple of moves. Blake?
Yeah, I'll let Miles answer the question real quick, because I'm still thinking of my answer. Miles, what do you think?
Well, I don't know if they'd be sellers because they still have talent. Like, they still got George Hill and Luis Scola and Hibbert, but maybe Hibbert would be a good trade piece. I'm not sure if Larry Bird really wants his team to be not competing at terms, but they're usually in-season trades, I feel like, in the NBA are not as big as maybe in the MLB or in most other sports. I feel like outside of the MLB, in-season trades are not huge. So if they really plan on getting rid of Roy Hibbert, I think they'll probably do it before the season starts.
Okay, and Blake?
Yeah, so you look at this team, and they lost a lot of players. Right now, they're currently sitting with George Hill at point guard, and then you got Roy Hibbert, who a lot of people just don't think is the player that we once thought he was. And other than that, Evan Turner, he's not going back, is he?
No, he's on the Celtics now.
Yeah, so Evan Turner wasn't there, or is not going to be there. Is Rodney Stuckey going to be there? That's the question.
Rodney Stuckey.
Have to be the second best player on this team for this team to have any chance.
David West, though. Don't forget about David West.
But David West is old, in my opinion, and he's going towards the end of his
taking shots at David.
I have to say, this Pacers team is going to need to make a move in this offseason to kind of revamp their team, because if they currently go into the season with the roster that they have, without Paul George, without Lance Stevenson, this team is not making the playoffs. I didn't look at the roster before we started talking, and now I'm looking at it right now, and it does not look pretty right now.
Okay. CB, anything else you want to talk about?
Is there any chance, even with Paul George back the year afterwards, that they're going to be able to be a playoff team at that point? Compete in the Eastern Conference, because again, as you said, David West is going to be old. Are they going to still, and they're already without Stevenson, are they still going to be able to compete in the Eastern Conference like they have the last 2 years?
You know what? I think that they can still compete in the Eastern Conference. Can they win it, though? I'm not sure they can. Like I said earlier, every other team is trending up in the East. Atlanta, Charlotte, Chicago, Cleveland, and they're trending down. And trending down is the exact opposite of what you want to do. I don't think that they will be. I think that they can be, but I don't think they will be. I think that they are facing a harsh reality that this team has to do something. With the current team they have, I don't think that they are. I think Paul George, even when he gets back, he won't immediately be the same player, though he can grow to be that guy once again. It's just, at this point, it's hard to say, but I feel that every other team is making the right moves and everything's going right for them. Meanwhile, it's the Pacers, they just can't get a break. Miles, what do you think?
I think the Pacers are definitely on track to still be a contender. Paul George is, I don't think he'll seriously be affected that much by the injury. I think it'll hurt him, but I think he'll come back to form.
Yeah, so I think with Paul George, this is a team that could easily make the Eastern Conference Finals. They're not going to make the finals right now with how good Cleveland is looking, especially if they get Kevin Love. Also, the Bulls, very dangerous. And everybody forgets the Wizards and Raptors are getting better and better each time we talk. So I think this team still has a great shot at making the Eastern Conference Finals if they have Paul George, but now without him, it's going to be very tough.
Okay, CB, thanks for calling in. Call in anytime.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to hearing you guys on Infinity Sports Network. I love your show.
Thanks so much.
Okay, well, that was CB, another guy from camp. Noah, how many callers have we had so far?
I believe it's 6 now. Is it 6?
Well, yeah, that's a record, everybody. I mean, our final episode here on National Sports, our 30th episode, and we've had 6 callers. Thank you guys to all of our fans out there. Feel free, again, number to call is... Noah, why don't you say it?
224-563-8444. Again, 224-563-8444. That is also in the comments section below.
Okay, with that being said, I need a drink of water. Let's take a second commercial break here and bring it back in with some more soccer. For Noah, for Miles, I'm Blake Devine. Stay with us, everybody.
Be sure to tune in to Blake and Noah, LA to Chicago weekly on Sunday nights as we cover the biggest news in sports. Topics range from breaking news, trade rumors, score updates, predictions, and of course, our famous Say What segment of the week. Get on Facebook and like the Blake and Noah, LA to Chicago page. Also, feel free to text or call in each week.
Welcome back into Blake and Noah, episode 30, hashtag The Departure. We were talking about soccer. We had to take a commercial break. And for Pacer guy out there, you can keep calling. I mean, it's perfectly all right. We understand the Pacers are a terrific team. We understand it. We got it from the first call. Miles, we were talking about the International Champions Cup. I didn't get to watch Liverpool AC Milan. I don't know if you did, but just
I didn't get a chance.
Touching on the two teams, what do you think about their potential? Oh wait, no, we have another caller.
Oh god.
On the line. What's your name and where are you from?
Bang bang.
Oh, it's Bang Bang. How you doing? He's gone. It was Bang Bang for everybody. It was a simple comment. I think he got the message across. Bang Bang.
Okay. Wow. Let's continue here, though. So AC Milan and Liverpool, two of the most storied teams in European soccer. Liverpool got the victory 2-0 and finished off undefeated in pool play. Guys, another person had called in earlier and talked about how Luis Suarez left this team. Obviously, the infamous biting. But how good is this team, really? Who's going to step up and be the player that Luis Suarez was? Miles, what do you think?
It's going to be Daniel Sturridge. He's the same player he was last year, and he still scored 22-something goals. And then they have Raheem Sterling, who's still young. This team is holding a lot on youth and a lot on English youth, which is a little bit interesting considering the Premier League is tending to go, away from English youth. They added an Adam Lallana this year. They added Ricky Lambert. But obviously Ricky Lambert, Raheem Sterling, and Daniel Sturridge are not going to completely replace the void of Luis Suarez. One guy I think is under the radar is a guy that was on loan at my favorite team last year, Fabio Barini. He was on loan at Sunderland. He had a terrific season, and recently the teams agreed a transfer fee, but he rejected the contract, and it's been his dream all along to break into the Liverpool first team. So I would not be surprised to see Fabio Barini put a couple goals in the back of the net this season.
Yeah, so Noah, this team won their game versus AC Milan. How much of a shot do they have of taking out Manchester United?
Oh, I mean, first of all, it's the preseason, so they've got a great shot of doing so. I don't think they will. I think at the end of the day, the preseason, especially for a team like Manchester United and Liverpool, I think they're just measuring up what they've got. Same with Real Madrid. You see, they didn't even have half their players there. They were measuring to a certain extent how their team looked. I don't think they were really necessarily measuring how good they were. I don't think Liverpool and Manchester United are doing that either. At the end of the day, Liverpool is going to need their stars to step up. They're going to need Sturridge to step up. And he will be the guy everybody's on because, of course, he had a terrific year. Raheem Sterling, that means, will have more space. You have, of course, Ricky Lambert, who could be helpful in the coming season. Of course, it comes down for me to Raheem Sterling. And I know he's young, and I know that's tough to put all of that on a guy who hasn't even seen his 20th birthday yet. In fact, he has a good 4 months until his birthday. He's 19 years old, and the guy's going to have to carry a large load this year. It's going to be tough for him, but I definitely think that Liverpool has what it takes. Just looking at the other team that they play, the team they played on the other side, AC Milan. Oh, AC Milan.
They're not half the team they used to be.
They're not even close to that. They've had some issues. I mean, starting with the fact they had Clarence Seedorf as their coach, which is a horrible decision. That was a horrible decision.
Their best player, aside from Balotelli, is Steven El Shaarawy, and he doesn't even want to be there.
I know. It's been a tough past couple of years. You know what? They'll probably get back up there at some point because they're AC Milan. But for right now, it's going to be a long road ahead for AC Milan and their fans.
Yeah, and the fact that they don't have Champions League football this year is going to, I think, be a plus. They've got some good players. they got Alex from Paris Saint-Germain. He's going to be a good addition on the defense. They've got Christian Zapata, who's a good defender. They've got Robinho. They've got Keisuke Honda. And they've got the young defender that I really like, Matteo Desciglio. So they have some talent. I don't know if they'll be competing for a Champions League spot this year, but a new coach, they're gonna be back there. Inzaghi is a good coach, and I don't know if they'll win the Scudetto again within the next 3-4 years, but they'll be back. They'll definitely be back.
Yeah, just talking about the Desciglio and Colombian Gerson Vergara, that's a very formidable center back combination. I think that this team has a lot of potential.
Desciglio usually plays right back. But.
Right back, okay. I mean, honestly, at this point, AC Milan's just got a ton of, I think, young talent. But the question is, how does that pan out? Do they actually want to be there? And what goes down in the future? As I said, it's going to be a while till they really return to Italian glory.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially considering that AS Roma trending up. Napoli hasn't been bad either. Juventus is up there as well. Even Inter. I think it's going to be a tough time for AC Milan fans. They will get back up there. They're AC Milan.
But yeah, they will. But
it's time.
We have to keep in mind that the league it's not a difficult league. Like last year they finished under teams like Fiorentina, Parma, and Torino. Like I'm not saying those are bad teams, but this is AC Milan. This is one of the most storied teams in football history. So finishing behind teams like Parma, you can't be doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, gotta move on to the final topic for soccer here. So we have the International Cup of Champions final in Miami. You have two of the most storied teams in the English Premier League, Liverpool, Manchester United. Luis van Gaal, the coach of Manchester United, has said that this tournament has provided players with a gift of confidence. He added that he's not sure how the ICC stacks up to other tournaments, but he's managed to say that the impact of this tour is big. So just moving over to this question, how big has this tournament been, and has it been in the past few years, for the growth of U.S. soccer? Has it been helping it, or has it been making not much of a difference? Miles, what do you think?
Well, U.S. soccer is growing, and we saw this World Cup with the incredible TV ratings of the United States game, the millions of people that went out in viewing parties to watch. I think soccer has always been a U.S. game. As we've grown up, kids have been playing soccer at a young age. But I think I mentioned this when we did a show in Boston. I mentioned this about the U.S. system in that it's harder for the United States to develop good soccer players when we're going through this high school system as opposed to other countries like Germany where players are being developed at the age of 11, 12. But I think in terms of growth for the U.S., it's great to see that 110,000 people showed up for a football game. That's incredible. And 20 years ago, maybe even in 1994, that is 20 years ago, when the U.S. hosted the World Cup, I think the highest attendance was like 97,000 at the Rose Bowl. But 20 years ago is when soccer really started to grow in the U.S. 25 years ago, we wouldn't be seeing 100,000 people show up to a football game. So it's pretty incredible. I think soccer is growing in the United States, but you're always going to have those people. And I think one thing is that Americans like fast, hard-hitting games like American football. A beautifully technical game like soccer is going to take some time to grow in this country.
Yeah, Noah, so you were there, 109,000 people at the stadium. How big is U.S. soccer getting in America?
Well, it's getting really big. Look, even under 20 years ago, it wasn't necessarily that big, actually. After the World Cup, interest dropped significantly. However, after this World Cup, interest seems to be maintaining the same, or at least close to the same level. Of course, we have a long time before we can actually judge whether or not it will stay that way for a long time to come, but it seems like it will. You know what? Part of it has to do with the fact that Real Madrid and Manchester United. First of all, Manchester United has probably the biggest brand in the United States. Real Madrid definitely up there as well, but it's terrific to see how many people show up. And even the fan that doesn't really even know who's playing in the game shows up for it because they want to see soccer. If you say to most American sports fans, and you say, when you show up, do you actually know what you're watching? Many of them at least know when they're watching football who Peyton Manning is, who Calvin Johnson is. And though they don't know that yet from soccer, they know, it's Cristiano Ronaldo. It's Wayne Rooney. They're getting to that point now where they can see somebody and say, I know you. I know you, and that's very important.
Yeah, and I think American football. I know Major League Baseball is America's pastime, but let's be honest, it's not really dying out. But American football is really America's sport at this day and age. I think Americans like the violent. Well, I'm not saying Americans like violence, but they like the hard-hitting kind of style of American football. They call it smash mouth football. It's tough, disciplined football, and I love American football. I won't even lie, but soccer is just a beautifully technical game, and a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, all it is just a bunch of passing." Yeah, but you have to appreciate the tactics and how players move, and I don't think American fans are hardwired to understand that yet.
Yeah, okay, guys. Finally, before we wrap it up here for soccer, and Miles, you've been a great guest. You're so knowledgeable about soccer. So the International Cup of Champions final is going to be on Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Miles, who wins and why, and what is the score?
I think Manchester United wins 2-1. I think it's a little cliche, but I think Chicharito will score the winning goal. I think even though this is a preseason friendly and it's hard to pick, I think if you're not even playing the first team squad, I still think Manchester United comes out on top. And I think Manchester United will finish ahead of Liverpool in the table this season.
Okay, so Noah, who wins this game and why?
This is what men do.
Oh, sorry about that.
What do men do, Blake? That's the real question.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know what? I'm gonna go Manchester United as well. Of course, they'll probably have to go with Wilfried Zaha in their starting lineup now that Welbeck is injured. We're not exactly sure what the injury is.
I'll put a good wager Wilfried Zaha doesn't start a game in the Premier League season.
That's probably true. I think that he's still not up there yet. I just watching him in the game, he shows a lot of talent. It's just not great, but still, Zaha played over Chicharito yesterday in the game when Welbeck came out injured. Chicharito wasn't the first player to go in. Chicharito, of course, looks to be he might even be behind Zaha. I mean, knowing Van Gaal, anything's possible. But at the end of the day, I like Manchester United to win. I'm going to go a little higher scoring. I'm going to go 3-2. And at the end of the day, I think it's about Van Gaal out-coaching Brendan Rodgers. I think he is a genius in terms of tactics. And I think that's one of the big reasons why I think that Manchester United has the potential to get back to Champions League soccer next year.
Okay, well, Miles, thank you so much for being on our show. It's been a wonderful time having you. You got to have a soccer show on our new network.
I'm hoping to. I might do one on my own. I just don't really know if there's anyone that wants to do soccer shows. If you want to, let me know, but I'll be definitely up for it. But thank you for having me on the show. So I'll be over on Infinity Sports Network August 8th. 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we're having our show. You can follow me on Twitter at TheRealMPEJ. So thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay, well, that was Miles Klotz and his first episode here and last episode of National Sports. So we're going to take our final commercial break here, and then we're going to come back in with the Say What segment of the week, our signature thing on the Blake and Noah Show.
Kicking it with Jake and Noah. What are we kicking? A soccer ball. That's right, National Sports now has its very own soccer show hosted by none other than Jake Liker and the renowned Noah Taborda. I'm one half of the dynamic duo, Jake Liker.
And I'm Noah Taborda. We bring you all the latest news on and off the soccer field in the soccer world, whether it be at international or club level. Like our Facebook page, Kicking It with Jake and Noah.
And if you think I'm renowned too, don't forget to tune in once a week on Spreaker.com/National Sports. We'll see you then.
Welcome back in, and we have a caller that we won't answer again because it's Paul George! Again. Okay. Where were we, Blake?
Yeah, so now we're going on to our Say What segment of the week. But real quick, Noah, what was that call? Who called?
Paul George. The Paul George guy.
Oh, same guy.
He is called now, he is called now 4 times.
Wow, I was not aware of that. But, okay, well, if you'd like to text in, you can feel free to text in. But real quick, while Noah's getting ready for the Say What segment of the week, I just got a text from Jason Gareline, a former member of National Sports.
Still not very.
And he texted me a question: what moves should the Dodgers make at the trade deadline? Well, first of all, there's 2 flaws with that question. The trade deadline is now over, so not sure what he means by that. The only thing I can say is the Dodgers bullpen sure needs some shoring up, and they did not answer the ball, you could say, and make any moves that really help their bullpen at all during the offseason. Noah, do you have anything to add to this strange text message?
I'll take it as what should they have done. Gotten rid of Matt Kemp, maybe. I don't have much else to say besides that.
Okay, with that, let's go on to our signature moment on the Blake and Noah show, the Say What segment of the week.
Oh, by the way, before we do that, now we got a text from them. Thanks, Blake. Oh, long text saying, get me on, then with this lowercase b, mostly capitals, also a lowercase n. Sorry, my bad, 2 uppercase b's.
Who's that from?
I don't know. Got another text message now. It's Joe from the Bay Area. No, your name is Paul George from Indiana. Okay, let's get this started.
So, did you break up with Lauren?
No, I didn't. As a matter of fact, she's coming over for dinner tonight. Say what?
Yes, that's right. It's time for Say What. And we brought up punters are people too. So doesn't it make sense that we have a punter in our Say What segment? Texas A&M punter Drew Kaser. He wants to be Heisman. Having a shirt that says punters are people too, with the hashtag Kaser, number 4, Heisman, Kaser for Heisman. You know what? I will take this seriously. You have my vote. Punter for Heisman. Also, John Lester. Spreaker, of course, one of our favorite websites, always has some funny information, funny stories. They're not real, but here it says, Ace to give John Lester prize locker farthest away from raw sewage, so congratulations to John Lester. He won't have a sewage-filled locker. That's good for him. I hope he enjoys it.
The comment that I like the most here is from A's manager Billy Bean. It might smell like explicit in here, and I mean really, really strongly like explicit. There's no way to get rid of the smell. We've tried everything, trust me, but we want to focus on a championship, not thinking, oh God, what is that smell? So I thought that was the funniest comment from that one. Just making fun of the Oco Coliseum that the A's have. You can say that it's a dump, but they currently hold the best team in baseball.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the best team in baseball, it's hard to say that you're crap unless it actually is crap in the locker room. Which in that case, I guess there's not much else you can say. Okay, sports birthdays now. Tom Brady turns 37 today. 3-time Super Bowl champion, 5-time Super Bowl appearance, 2-time NFL MVP, Super Bowl MVP, 9-time Pro Bowler, and of course, married to Gisele Bundchen. Next up, Ryan Lochte. What would Ryan Lochte do? I don't know, but it's his birthday and he'll be doing something. 30 years old today. Yeah, he hasn't won anything really, so...
Well, he's won the gold medal, and I remember
he won the gold medal
grills that he wore. Do you remember that?
Yes, actually I do.
2012 Olympics in London,
Yeah.
when he pulled on those grills to kind of celebrate.
Wasn't he supposed to be like the next Michael Phelps too, and then he just never panned out?
Well, he's still swimming competitively. He still could win. I mean, how many medals did he win? Like 3 in the 2012 London Olympics.
I'm
he
not
did
sure.
well in Rio.
I mean, he's getting up there though. He's now 30 years old, so.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna remember him for those fake grills that he wore when he was doing the Olympic ceremony with the national anthem playing over his head.
Okay, now we move on to shout-outs, and we'll start with you, Blake.
Yeah, so lastly, as we give our final shout-out, I'm going to thank National Sports for an awesome run. A special shout-out to Robert Dieters and Cameron Sadeghi and all the rest of the guys at National Sports. It's been great. Thank you guys for letting us on your wonderful network, and we hope you guys the best in the future. Feel free to call into our shows on Infinity Sports, and we would love to listen to your shows on National Sports and call in whenever we feel like it and guest appear. We'd love to have that partnership with you guys, but I'd just like to give one last thank you to you guys for giving us the chance to be on your wonderful network.
Yeah, and of course, we're heading over to Infinity Sports Network, and you can like us on Facebook. You can follow us on Spreaker. It would be greatly appreciated on Twitter. At Infinity Sports N, and it's terrific to see that the way that National Sports has handled this, especially Cameron Sadeghi. It's been a class act from them, and we hope to have the partnership in the future. Of course, advertising for each other and working together. It's been a great ride, and of course, Blake and Noah will not end here. will be restarting basically on Infinity Sports Network. So instead of saying goodbye, we say till next time. With the end of one chapter, we begin another. Thank you for listening. For Blake Devine, I'm Noah Taborda, and we hope you have a great rest of your night.